Well, hello, friends. Hope you're doing great. I'm doing great. We're just here with a little casual law chat. Chat about stuff and things and take some questions, a little Q&A maybe. It'll be fun. No big deal. It's just some thoughts I wanted to share. So first of all, I was enjoying some of the blowback. I don't know if that's the right word. Well, maybe it's exactly the right word from my reading of the ATF's proposed guidance, the guidance that they put out in the proposed in the Federal Register. And for no particular reason, I decided to do that off camera. There was no particular reason I didn't decide to put the camera on. I just wanted to try to see something different, see if how it worked. Just an experiment. So I was like, yeah, for no particular reason, let's give it a try. And as is typical, I don't really read these things in advance because I want to share my reactions live with you. And then it turned out that I became very, very animated in my voice along the way, and started off skeptical of the ATF, and then became basically ATF cheerleader over here with saying, basically that the ATF was basically right and everyone else was being a jerk. I was just playing up. I was playing up my personality, playing up the energy. I was just having a lot of fun with it, just amplifying my personality, because I feel that more energy I put into things, the more interesting they are. And so, I got into a little bit of trouble, I guess, with some of my fan base because they didn't like some of the things I was saying in that, and because my presentation was a little out of character, both because I wasn't on video and because my presentation was more amped up than normal. I came off perhaps other than I intended, but hey, we learn these things the hard way, right? We learn by trying and doing, and then maybe it doesn't work and we try something else. But yeah. And some of the comments were very interesting. I particularly like the one who was like, most pistol shooters are two-handed. You should do your homework. Now, I could have mentioned that I'm a certified pistol instructor and I shoot quite a bit of pistol, and I'm well familiar with how pistol is shot. But because he was snarky with me and said you should do your homework, I was like, well, according to the federal rules, if you actually go look at the definition of pistol, it mentions one-handed twice. So I was like, if you actually look at the definition, it says one-handed twice in the definition of pistol, not two-handed. So, since this is a legal review show, who did whose homework, right? So yeah, I gave a snarky answer to a snarky comment. So that's how that went. So, fine. But yeah, and then other people were pointing out that I'm just blindly trusting the ATF. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just reading what they wrote, and I'm analyzing on its own merits, like I do everything. And I'm just reading what it is and analyzing it for what it is. And maybe because I wasn't being clear, some people thought, all pistol braces are being banned. That's decidedly not what's going on. In fact, the ATF is making a very strong point of saying pistol braces are not banned. We are banning things that people are calling pistol braces, which are decidedly not pistol braces, right? They say that's what they is, but it's not what that is. It never was in the first place. People have been pushing the definition. And then some people pointed out, well, they've been doing this for 8 years. I'm like, yeah, but people have been pushing the definition, so it's become more and more a problem, right? Because people are pushing the boundaries, so it becomes more and more a problem. And then some people said, well, there's a lot of inconsistent guidance from the ATF. I'm like, well, I haven't looked into it in depth, but I'm willing to bet off the top of my head if the guidance is actually not that inconsistent. It's fact-specific, as many things are in law. So this brace might be okay and this brace not. So those might not necessarily be inconsistent. It might be due down to the particular facts, right? So without even looking and seeing whether or not it's inconsistent, I'm like, yeah, there's a decent chance it's not. It's a decent chance that they did a fact-based analysis and some came out one way and some came out the other way for reasons that might be fully legitimate. Now, it might be the ATF has their head up their ass. That's always possible too. But, there's a decent chance the other way around, right? So we can think, well, what is the reason that they're giving inconsistent results? Well, one is that they have the head up their ass. That's possibility number one. Possibility number two is that they're being asked different questions. And so that's why they're giving inconsistent results, because the questions are inconsistent. So we have to consider these possibilities, right? And just because the ATF does some bad things, and just because the ATF has done really bad things in the past, including the Fast and Furious scandal, just because the ATF does bad things doesn't mean everything they have to do is bad. Once again, maybe we could analyze everything on their own merits. So, I don't know what it says about the long-term future and everything, but I read that document and I'm like, yep, everything the ATF says makes sense. It's basically saying it's basically just saying, you've been trying to trick us. Please stop trying to trick us. This is getting annoying. What I read in that memo. But anyways, it was just interesting how the presentation style and the amplification of my voice, and the fact I was kind of yelling, and the fact that I was kind of like really rah-ing the ATF, which you wouldn't expect from a Second Amendment guy, because I consider myself a pro Second Amendment guy. And like, you wouldn't necessarily consider me to be rah-rah ATF, but I'm like, well, I'm reading what they wrote, and I'm reading the law, and I'm like, yep, that sounds about right. And then some people were like, well, the National Firearms Act or the Gun Control Act is unconstitutional. I'm like, well, until a court actually says that, I have to work under the current reality where it's not unconstitutional. So like, yeah, you might think it's unconstitutional, but until some court somewhere tells me that, I have to interpret it in the current legal reality. So, and then someone had this really interesting counterexample to try to show how I had my head up my ass, which I kind of enjoyed, because they said, well, what if the Congress passed a law that said all blondes have to get the death penalty? And you'd say, well, you'd say that you have to abide by that law until it's found constitutional. And as a lawyer, I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I do, because that small c conservative is incautious. Because I'd have a better odds of that law being struck down by the Supreme Court. But as a small c conservative lawyer, you always give the most cautious guidance possible, because you never know for sure what the Supreme Court's going to do. And so you always have to give cautious guidance, right? So it's like, yeah, the Supreme Court could do that, but until that happens, we should try to ameliorate our risk by seeing if there's ways for us to avoid it. So maybe we should dye our hair, rather than say, well, the Supreme Court will reverse it in that hypothetical. And I think most lawyers worth their salt would do exactly that. They'd say, this might be very well unconstitutional. The Supreme Court will strike it down. But because it's on the books and laws are presumed constitutional, the most conservative, small c conservative advice you can give is, how about dye your hair and we'll go fight it? So yeah, it's like, yeah, you have to presume it's valid and go from there. And then, the Gun Control Act and the National Firearms Act have both been around for a while. 1934, I think, and 1986, respectively. So it's like, they're probably not going anywhere, if I had to guess. And the case law is certainly not out for that right now. We have enough trouble getting the Supreme Court to take anything. You think the Supreme Court is going to, at any point in the near future, overturn the National Firearms Act or the Gun Control Act? There's just no way. The case law is not there for that. There's not the building blocks to do that right now. They're being very hostile, taking anything to build up the blocks. We're anywhere close to being able to make that kind of a step. So, right now it's like, yeah, it might be unconstitutional, but I don't know that. I just know it's valid, and I have to operate in that universe. So it was an interesting discussion with some interesting rebuttals and interesting presentation style and some stuff like that. So yeah, so we'll just say hello to some people and just continue chatting. Hello, Joe's Med. Hello, Nemoth. Said, wondering if Uncivil Law has seen the Office of the Comptroller of Currency propose to regulate banks. I have not. I have not seen their proposal or what they're trying to do, and regulation of banks may not necessarily be the worst thing, given some of the stuff the banks did that caused some of the problems. Sarah Oko said, hugs. Thank you. Joseph, Daniel Lemix. Hello to you. The Blakester, let's get another rant, brother. Yeah, we do what we can. Ginger Cowgirl, Nightstream, love this. Yeah, I love it too. The information Whataburger shirt. This actually isn't a Whataburger shirt. It just happens to be the same color scheme. But that's funny. Uncivil animated? No, lol, that's funny. I'm just more mad at Congress for making stupid laws than the ATF for enforcing the stupid laws. Fair enough. Fair enough. It was a little weird for not seeing your face, but don't get the wrong idea. Yeah, it was just an experiment. It was just something to try, see what happened. Also, because people from time to time say, how about a podcast? So I thought, what would that be? Let's see what that would be with just the voice, right? Because some people say, how about making it podcast? So I'm like, yeah, let's try it as just voice and see what happens. I'm not necessarily sure it was good, but it was different. So, we try things. Lawrence Todd, taking a contrary position is a great learning tool. That's the way I read it. That's the way I assessed it, Matthew Dubois, how do you make a Kleenex stance? By putting a little boogie in it. Cute. Joseph, facts, we don't need no stinking facts, yeah. Nemeth, so no sleeve gun racks, that kind of thing they're banning? No, in this particular memo, they are banning pistol braces that are neither pistol nor braces. People are selling things that they are calling braces, which are really shoulder stocks. And so the ATF's basic thing is like, yeah, we can tell the difference between a brace and a shoulder stock. Please stop trying to trick us. So it was like, well, this is some people in the Met, this is the largest gun registration ever. I'm like, this is going to affect very, very few people. Very, 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 very few people. And there's not a lot of people that fall into this category, but there's enough for the ATF to be irritated at it. So it's like, yeah, stop trying to trick the ATF. Basically, was that memo. Uh, I still think the only way to make a pistol rifle is to change the barrel. Okay, well, you can think that, but that's not necessarily the law. I mean, the law has definitions, and it's like, what's the difference between a pistol barrel and a rifle barrel? I mean, there are rifles that fire handgun cartridges, certainly. So I mean, it's not like there's rifles that fire 9mm, rifles that fire all kinds of handgun cartridges. So you can't necessarily tell, and I don't know the barrel is that much different between a pistol barrel and a rifle barrel. Can one play the Reliance card? They took care of the Reliance issues by saying that they were going to waive all the fees and not criminalize people and so forth and so on. So they tried to back end on the Reliance issues. So it looks like they're taking care of the Reliance problems, or at least they're trying to. What do you call a cow with only left legs? Lean beef. So I see this is bad joke hour. Is that what we're doing now? Fun. So what's happening on the channel? Well, sometime tomorrow, and I'm not sure exactly when, but I'm getting a green screen. I'm getting one of the foldable green screens, so it sits on the floor and you pull up the thing from the ground as a shade, and it has pneumatics, so it will stay up. And so we have a green screen, but I'm not 100% sure what to do with it. So I don't, but people have been saying, well, why don't you get a green screen? So like I could obviously like replace the background for my apartment with something else, but I'm not really sure what. So now we have to find a replacement background, I guess. I was looking for backgrounds on Google image search, just like searching Zoom background or law background. I didn't really find anything that I particularly liked. And I don't want it to be, I want it to be a serious background, so I don't want it to be like absurdist. I don't want it to be fanciful. I want it to be something, if we're going to do this, we're doing it for a reason, right? So we wanted to increase the perceived reliability and perceived seriousness of the channel. That would be the only reason to do it, is to replace the background with something that will increase the value of the channel, that will make it seem as reliable as it really is. It's one of the reasons I've been putting on suits and tie. One of the reasons I've been putting on the hat, is to try to up the immediate perception, because people do judge you like a book, and trying to increase that so the channel will be perceived as more reliable. And so the only reason to do a green screen is to replace the background with something that would increase that perception, and I don't know exactly what that is. So if you have any ideas, please let me know in the Discord, and we can go from there. But yeah, so at some point tomorrow we'll get the green screen. I'm pleased to say that the channel is going well on the edits. We've got a nice little backlog of edits going on, and we still have last week's stream that's being edited and cut down. So that's really nice. And then we'll go record some more stuff tomorrow. So we're catching up and making progress in terms of that. That's really good. Channel growth is stalled a little bit right now. I think that's at least partly due to the fact that when I was away for vacation, I wasn't posting stuff as regularly. And so we're a little bit stalled right now at 18,400. So we need to look for ways to increase the subscriber count. And we need to find ways to do that. So again, if anyone has any suggestions on that, please let me know so that we can find ways to do that. We also are looking into the possibility of doing some more scripted stuff. There's a whole list of topics that someone gave me, and thank you very much for the list of topics, where we can go through like the basic law school, stuff that you learn in law school, and we could do a whole like string of videos on it. So we might have to do some scripted stuff, and we need to figure out exactly what we would be doing there in terms of what that would be, in terms of how we write it out and how to present it and all the rest of it. But there's a possibility that we're going to go down that road, so that'll be interesting. Of course, the Supreme Court's back in session, so we're getting to hear some more Supreme Court reacts. We had a really fun one yesterday with Ted Cruz, old case from Ted Cruz. That was a lot of fun. Listen to some of his oral arguments, and it's always fun to see you guys and participate with you guys in the chat on those things. It's really enjoyable there. What else is going on? Yeah, just trying to continue trying to grow the channel and try to figure out ways to perform it. Someone said I should probably get a pop filter. I'm looking for a pop filter that I don't hate. I used to have one of those cloth pop filters that you really have, but I don't like the cloth pop filters because it's so big. It shows up on the camera, and so that's one of the reasons I got this little windscreen here. So it's not necessarily. So this is a little windscreen on top. So this is actually from Rode. So this windscreen filter thing actually was kind of expensive because I got the one from Rode itself to make sure that it was as good as possible. But I'll put that over there to at least accumulate some of the pop. And also we try to deal with that in post a little bit and try to clean that up. But someone said I should try to get a pop filter, but I don't really know where to get one that I like because the ones that I've seen, they're just too big and kind of distracting and they're too flimsy. So if anyone has any suggestions on like a pop filter that won't make me hate it, let me know. But the ones I've seen I don't particularly like that much, but we'll see what's going on. What else? Just got a haircut today. That was nice. So I'm feeling a little bit more refined since I got a nice little haircut there. That was good. And everything else is just kind of going situation normal. Just kind of putting out content, seeing what's going on, and making progress and all the rest of it. So, yeah. Hold on one second. Okay, so I was stalling for a long time because the chat wasn't updating. So I'm going to go back and read some chat. So if you're wondering why I wasn't responding to chat, because for some reason the chat just stopped working. So I'll go back and read some of the stuff that I missed. Randy Linder, 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world will blow you. Do you feel lucky? Fine. Liberated Gaming says, why did the ATF approve braces for 8 years? Well, they still approve braces. The memo on the guidelines is very much doesn't have anything to do with braces. The memo doesn't have anything to do with braces. It has to do with things that people are calling braces, which are not. So one of the reasons the ATF approved the braces for 8 years is presumably because for 8 years they were braces. And recently people have been pushing the boundaries, and they had to be like, yeah, you need to stop doing this because you're trying to say things are braces that are not. So that's why the ATF had a different opinion for 8 years, because things were different factually for 8 years. I think in large part people have been pushing the boundaries and causing the ATF to have to come down and be like, yeah, you got to stop doing this. If you're a pro 2A guy, you would be of the opinion that all existing gun control is unconstitutional. Well, not in my opinion. I mean, my interpretation, I don't think that's right. I don't think to say that you're pro Second Amendment means that you must conclude all gun registration or all gun control is unconstitutional. And the reason that I say that is because to say you're pro First Amendment wouldn't be to say that you think all regulations or all speech control is unconstitutional, because it's not. That's I think that's a fair analogy, at least to my mind. There's quite a lot of stuff in First Amendment law that would be perceived as valid. So I don't think saying that you're pro Second Amendment, that you believe in the Second Amendment, means that you must conclude all gun control or all gun regulation is inherently unconstitutional, because that seems a bit absurd, at least to me, because the parallel would be to say, well, I'm pro First Amendment, therefore all regulation, all speech control is unconstitutional. And we all know it's not. There's all kinds of, there's libel, slander, CP, fighting words, and, there's things beyond that too, dealing with other issues in the First Amendment arena. So I don't think to say that you're pro Second Amendment means you have to think all gun control or all gun regulation is inherently unconstitutional. That seems like a view that's not borne out by a belief in the Second Amendment any more than it is in the First, in my opinion. Can states do anything to protect the Second Amendment? Oh, sure. The states can always go further than the federal Constitution requires. So the states could always pass more gun rights than the Second Amendment has. So the state constitution can always go further. So if they want to protect things as a matter of state law, yeah, no problem. States can do lots of things to protect the Second Amendment, or at least the guns. They can do a lot of things there. Supreme Court's on vacation until January the 21st. Well, that's sad for everyone. Well, we can still have some old cases. There's still some oral arguments we haven't gone through. Whatever case would have built up, Second Amendment in Supreme Court is mooted almost immediately. As a practical matter, too. That's why one of the reasons why you have to take this in steps, right? Good evening, Alan. There's some docket number for the bank proposal. I'm not a banking expert, so I'm going to pass on that particular one. C. John says, go Tigers. Well, go Tigers to you. Liberate Gaming says the ATF has approved them for 8 years. Yes, and they'll continue to approve them now. As long as they're actually braces. This is this thing that people seem to be moving. Have I looked into all the Palmer 80 shenanigans? A little bit. But I haven't gotten into the depths on that yet. Replace the background with a pirate ship is definitely not what we're going for. Just leave the green screen up by itself for a few videos. Why would I do that? Why would I leave the green screen up by itself for a few videos so that you can play with it in the background and insert your own things? I don't think so. That's not helpful. Cliche book-proof background, yeah. What about books? Maybe like that way. If you want a serious background, your apartment has to go. Okay. I mean, some other people recorded in their apartments, but fair enough. We'll replace it with something else, I guess. You could do a courtroom background, make it look like you're judged. Nah, I don't think so. See, a lot of these suggestions are not serious, so I like the flag. Can that be the background? What is the entire background? I don't know about that. Courtroom? Yeah. You've been on for 13 minutes and not screaming like Al Jones? Yeah, I don't always scream like Al Jones. Politics has stalled too. That may have to do with channel growth. Fair enough. Do some moot courts. If I can find other lawyers to do them with, I'm all about doing some moot courts. That could be fun. But that requires getting other lawyers involved, and it requires a lot of commitment on time. In regards to channel growth, have you considered clickbait titles? I've been trying to clickbait titles. Apparently, I'm not very good at it, though. But yes, I've considered them. I have no problem. I just apparently am not very good at coming up with them. You love my Ted Cruz commentary? Thank you very much. Matt says he's late. That's okay. Have I learned of law school for everyone on Great Courses Plus? It's like 60 short lectures. It doesn't require much prerequisite knowledge. Maybe get a sponsorship. Could be fun. Could be good. Yeah. Danny says, I miss you telling people to stop all caps in the comments on Viva Stream. Yeah, well, Viva is going his direction and I'm going my direction, so that's the way things are. I'm so handsome. Well, thank you, Kentucky girl. That's very nice of you to say that I'm handsome. I appreciate that. But most speech is constitutional, while gun law regulation is not as free. Yes, but the point was they were saying all, right? That was the point. And then you say, well, most is constitutional. Yeah, but that wasn't their argument. Their argument was all, right? And so maybe that's a word choice on their part. But there's like, if you're a Second Amendment supporter, you should oppose all gun control, all gun regulation. I'm like, no, that doesn't follow. But most of it's proper. I'm like, yeah, but that wasn't the question, right? So it's like, yeah, the word choices matter. So it's the only one that says shall not be infringed. Well, not really. The First Amendment says Congress shall make no law, right? I mean, the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law, as in no law. And through the 14th Amendment, we know that's incorporated. So that means also states shall make no law. So, I don't know. It seems pretty comparable to me. It's like you shall make no law. Well, Congress makes laws all the time that deal with the First Amendment, and they're not struck down. So, I don't think saying the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed when the First Amendment says shall make no law, and we have laws that exist and are passed and upheld all the time. Now, under well understood doctrines, but I don't think shall not be infringed is really doing the magic words thing that you hope it is. And also, if we want to be really, really technical about it, and in a strictest and we want to really interpret the Second Amendment strictly, The right to keep and bear arms is the pre-existing right. So not all regulations would necessarily be an infringement. So there's that problem too, right? So because the right, as previously understood, has its limitations inherently. So there could at least theoretically be laws that Congress would pass which would be restrictive but would not be an infringement of the right to keep and bear arms, because it would have been in line with the ones that were understood in common law, as long as we're interpreting every word strictly in the Constitution, right? So it's like if we mean, well, shall not be infringed, then the question is, what does it mean to be infringing? And not every regulation would necessarily be an infringement, even if it's limiting, because it might be within the bounds of the Second Amendment as the pre-existing right was understood. So this is part of the problem when you're like trying to really, really go to the limit of understanding what it's really trying to say and really looking at it, so, or at least it's arguable, right? Shall not be infringed is pretty explicit. Shall make no laws even more explicit, I think. And actually it's not as explicit as you might think. Because what does it mean to be infringing? You have to infringe the right. Well, what's an infringement, right? You're presupposing the thing that you're trying to conclude, right? So that's the problem. You're presupposing the thing that you're trying to conclude. Congress passes a regulation on guns, and you're saying, well, the Second Amendment says this right shall not be infringed. Right, but why is it an infringement? Well, because it's infringing. Yeah, but why? Why is it an infringement? Well, it's limiting our rights. It's limiting our access to guns. Yeah, but why is that an infringement of the right to keep and bear arms? Right? So you're presupposing the thing that you're trying to prove. And so you have to actually consider what would be an infringement of the right to keep and bear arms. You have to actually look at it. I could do the car interior, maybe. Has Vova spoken to you since the Barnes critique? He has. Anyone making the argument that gun control is constitutional because of nuclear biological weapons is a disingenuous tool. Yeah, also they may not be fully understanding or fully considering what the word arms really means in the context of the Second Amendment. Because the word in the context of the Second Amendment doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as it means in other places. So we have to determine whether a nuclear weapon is an arm within the meaning of the Second Amendment. And I think the answer to the question is no. So it might be an arm for various armed control treaties, but is it an arm within the meaning of the Second Amendment? In my opinion, no. And I've gone into analysis as to why that's true. And guns are one of the only rights where lawyers intentionally ignore the Second Amendment is very specifically worded. No, most of the time it's other people who are ignoring how specifically it's worded. And most of the time it's other people who are ignoring the very specific way it's worded. Very specific. It's like you can't chastise lawyers for ignoring the specific way it's worded and then not look at every word. So the right to keep and bear arms, the pre-existing one, all right, the pre-existing right shall not be infringed. Well, every regulation is not necessarily an infringement if it's within the bounds of the right as it existed beforehand. And there might be a whole lot of things that would be well within the bounds of the Second Amendment right as it was understood in the antiquity. So maybe you're not the one that's fully looking at the strict words. If I recall, the Fourth Amendment was shall not be infringed originally before it became violated. I don't know about the drafting of the Fourth Amendment. I could go look it up, but that's not what it says now. It talks about reasonableness is what the language of the Fourth Amendment is. Let's see. There's a TubeBuddy plugin. I use that. Yeah, I use that. Oh, I don't use TubeBuddy. I use one of the other ones. Yeah, but I use one of them. So whatever. Have I heard of Supreme Court animations? I have not. That sounds like fun. Jury Duty is the best law movie. Changed my mind. What about the militia part of the Second Amendment? Well, the militia part is considered to be a preamble and not operative text. So the preamble is not considered to have an operative limitation. And there are two other examples of a preamble in the Constitution that doesn't have operative effect. The one would be the preamble to the Constitution, We the People, is a preamble that doesn't have operative effect. And the other example of a preamble that doesn't have operative effect is in the Intellectual Property Clause. because it says to promote the progress of science and the useful arts, and that's considered to be a preamble that does not have operative effect. So the preamble specifies a reason, but not the only reason, or even the predominant reason. So the language is not a substantive limitation on the operative text. So that was what the Supreme Court said in DC versus Heller, and I think is correct. And you can look to other examples I just mentioned where that same analysis would uphold. So speech is not the same as saying words. Not necessarily, that's true. Speech can be things other than saying words, that's true. Considering guns, what happens if a state asserts constitutional rights that conflict with federal law? Well, federal law wins if it's in a domain that federal law can operate in, then we can get into interesting arguments about what that is and what that isn't. But to the extent that the federal law is valid exercise of federal power, then the federal law would be supreme. If it is, and you could get into issues as to whether it does preempt or not. But that would be the right answer. Speech is conveying or ideas or emotions. I don't know if that's the right way to view what speech is or not, but it's an interesting idea. Sarah says, bravo, thank you. So right. I know I'm right. Yeah. 12 Angry Men. Ooh, 12 Angry Men is such a great movie. And one of these days, it's free on YouTube right now for some reason, which is amazing. I think we could do a watch party. That'd be fun. Or just watch the whole movie. And we could have a discussion as to whether or not the jury was actually right in 12 Angry Men. Whether they were right as a matter of law, and whether they were right in fact. So did they operate correct legally as a jury, and did they come to the actual correct factual conclusion? That can be fun, right? Did they actually make the right decision? The First Amendment laws have victims. Me owning something has no victim. I don't know what that has to do with anything. So as Azaroth said, so under that logic, a law giving the death penalty for blonde hair is an infringement until the Supreme Court finally takes the case and says it's unconstitutional. It's in a nebulous state as to whether or not it's infringement before that happens, because we don't know the Supreme Court's going to actually do that. So it would have been infringement the whole time, but we don't know if that's true yet. So we can be able to determine it retroactively that it was an infringement the whole time, but we won't actually know if it's an infringement because we don't know if the Supreme Court would say that or not, because they haven't actually done it yet. So a good lawyer should give conservative guidance, because they don't know for sure what the courts will do, right? So it's like, yeah, it will have been determined to be an infringement, but that hasn't happened yet. So the right thing to do right now is to say, yeah, we're not sure, because we're not sure. You never know for sure what courts will do. Courts will surprise you all the time. I see South Carolina pre-filed a bill for constitutional carry and a bill to protect the second. Do you think odds are good to pass this year? Probably. Shall not be infringed. Could you try to argue from the opposite side the way that you have been? I'm not quite sure what you mean to argue the opposite side. I think the key place to start in the Second Amendment, for me, the key place to start is it's the right to keep and bear arms. So this is been a long conceit of pro-Second Amendment people, right? One of the conceits of pro-Second Amendment people is that the right predates or precedes the Constitution, right? It pre-existed. So that's one of the questions that people ask, does the Second Amendment create the right, or did the right exist before and it just simply recognizes the right? So does the Constitution create the right, or does it simply recognize a right that previously existed? And the usual argument from Second Amendment people is that the right previously existed. So it's not that the Second Amendment creates the right. Most Second Amendment people would say, and I've talked to enough of them to know, most Second Amendment people would say that the Second Amendment is acknowledging a right that previously existed, right? So that's what the right to keep and bear arms is. It's a right that previously existed. So then you have to understand, okay, well, what is that right? What is the right to keep and bear arms? You know, what is it? What is it? What is its contours? What is its? What is its? What is its limit? What is its contours? What is its trying to? What is that encompassing? What is the right? What is it referring to? And, you know, one way to answer that question, and the way that I typically answer the question, is by resorting to English common law, because that's, you know, typically where a lot of these rights were discovered, for lack of a better description, discovered, and the rights had contours to them that were understood. So, for example, slander would be a good example, where like the slander was built into the freedom of speech from the get-go. Slander pre-exists the Constitution too as a concept. So it was always there in the first place. So the right to keep the right to freedom of speech doesn't include slander. So you could actually make the argument, and I would make the argument. You can make the argument that slander is strictly speaking not speech. It's not actually speech at all, because it's not within the bounds of the freedom of speech. So therefore, it's not speech. Whatever else it is, I mean, it might be words and conveying whatever, but it's not speech within the meaning of the First Amendment. And so you do the same thing for the Second Amendment. You say, well, okay, it's a pre-existing right. What is the pre-existing right? What are the contours of the pre-existing right? What are its ebbs and flows? And so you could have a restriction that would be within the bounds of what the right was understood. So it wouldn't be an infringement, because it was never an infringement. It would have not been an infringement, you know, at any point in history. So it's not an infringement now. So when you say, well, this is a restriction on the right to keep and bear arms, it's like, no, it's not, because it was never part of the right to keep and bear arms. It might be in some sense preventing you from owning guns, or it might be in some sense putting a burden on you as a firearms owner, but it's not infringing the right to keep and bear arms, because it's never part of the right to keep and bear arms. If you actually want the pre-existing right to keep and bear arms, if you actually want that, you know, if you actually want the right to keep and bear arms, well, okay, that's great. But that comes with the good and the bad. It comes with the bitter and the sweet. You know, you can't just have one half of it. It comes with it all. So it comes with some good and comes with some perhaps bad, depending on your point of view. You know, there's things the government could do that would just not be an infringement, because they were never infringements in the first place. And there's a lot they can't do. There's a lot they can't do. Just like there's a lot they can't do in the First Amendment domain too. But there's a lot they can do. It wouldn't be an infringement. So, I mean, that's, I think, the best way to understand all these words. I mean, what else could the words mean other than that? You know, that's what I think. Is the full orange a look at homage to Trump? No, it's just what I happen to be wearing right now. T Spicy says, I love you. I love you guys too. You look like Jimmy Somerville from the Communards. I don't know who that is. Let me Google him real fast. Jimmy Somerville. Let's see how close I look to him. That's a new one. I haven't really gotten that name before. Maybe. Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. Okay, that's cool. Second, yeah, we can discuss. I would watch 12 Angry Men, yes. I love that. It's great. It's a great movie. The jury is almost always right. The jury is dispositive, but whether or not they're right, you know. T Spicy says, I put you in my video and dressed you up as a gangster for your take on KJ. I love your humor. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, Sarah says, brilliant. I'm in. I've been thinking about these issues for a while. I've been thinking about these. One of the major papers I wrote in law school was on the Second Amendment. I don't remember a lot of it because it's been a long time, but I went through every draft of the Second Amendment and, you know, really went through it and tried to really go through every draft and say what it might not have been saying, you know, stuff like that. Sin 6 Grim Reaper, can you give your opinion on how President Trump can legally avoid some of the most likely cases when he can be prosecuted after he leaves office? Well, for federal offenses, I don't think he really has any exposure. His greatest exposure is for state level offenses. His greatest exposure that I can see is from the Manhattan district attorney, state level attorney. How can he protect themselves against that? I don't know. It depends a lot on what happens there. But there's nothing obvious that he can do to get. I mean, he get a pardon from New York or something, but there's nothing obvious that he can do. I mean, up front, there's a lot he can do on defense on the back end, but there's not a lot I can think he can do up front. So probably like, federal law, I think he's fine under. His greatest exposure that I can see is New York state law from the state district attorney. The Southern District of New York will probably try to get a crack at him too, but they're federal. And so I don't think the federal government is going to be able to get to him. Can foreign case law be persuasive to U.S. courts? Sure. It can absolutely, especially if its most obvious relevance to a U.S. court would be in interpreting a treaty to which the U.S. is a member. So the most common time that a U.S. court will look to a foreign court in terms of their analysis is when they're interpreting a common treaty. Now, of course, it's just persuasive authority, but that's the most common example. The other examples would be, especially English law, especially before 1776. So you'll get those when you're trying to interpret things. Otherwise, it happens from time to time. Where you have the most obvious other time it would happen is if you have a choice of law provision. So if you have a contract law dispute and you put in your choice of law is, I don't know, Israel, then yeah, you'd bring in Israeli law because now that's what you're supposed to do. So you have a U.S. court trying to understand and interpret and apply Israeli law because that's what you asked for. That would be another one that's common. What else were you likely to see it? Yeah, those would be the most common times, I think. And every once in a while, you'll see it pop up in some case, as a side note. But yeah, it's definitely persuasive, or it can be. Is Donahue versus Stevenson taught at all? What is that case? Is that, let's see, what is that one? Manufacturers have a legal duty of care to ultimate consumers if it's not possible for defects to be identified. I'm not sure we covered that one, but I'm sure we've covered cases like it in the United States dealing with product liability and stuff like that. Okay, but English common law at the time of the Revolution, only Protestant rights to keep and bear arms was acceptable. That wouldn't fly in the United States. Well, it would as far as the Second Amendment is concerned in the United States. It's just the First Amendment's also going to come in and be applicable. But as far as the Second Amendment's concerned, yeah, no problem. Protestants only. But then, of course, the First Amendment's going to come in and add on top of that. So that's how different rights interact with each other, right? Thank you. Happy holidays to you and your friends and family. Thank you very much, Speed Bump. Maybe to the court that ruled a guy asking for his lawyer dog was asking for a canine lawyer. That is not what that case is about. It was badly misreported in the press. It wasn't because the court was confused that he was asking for a dog. We read that decision. We covered that case. That was not the reason. It was because the request was equivocal. He said, maybe I should get a lawyer dog. That's what killed him. The maybe. He didn't actually ask. It was equivocal. The request for a lawyer has to be unambiguous, and his wasn't. So yeah, the court was not confused that maybe he was asking for a dog. That's not what the court wrote, and everyone that wrote about it didn't understand what the court said, or are idiots, or just putting words in the court's mouth. That wasn't the reason. The reason that guy failed is because he didn't actually ask. He said maybe, or perhaps, or some other qualifier. When you ask for a lawyer, you got to actually ask for a lawyer. Maybe, perhaps, perchance, maybe if the stars are right, I should get a lawyer. You got to actually ask for a lawyer if you're going to ask for a lawyer. Yeah. Boomhauer says, look like you missed most of the chat. We're doing fine. T. Spice, she says, I think you're adorbs and I secretly love you. Fantastic. I like your channel. Thank you. Nice to see you here. Didn't know we have Saturday Night Law. We do have Saturday Night Law sometimes. How long will it take you for Taddy versus the other case to be resolved? Oh, I don't know. Hard to say. We got to deal with the jurisdictional issue, and then assuming that doesn't work, then I guess we're on to an answer, and we go from there. But, realistic time frame? Well, if the jurisdiction issue is granted, then we're going to have to refile somewhere else and start all over again. But assuming the jurisdictional issue fails, then you're looking at probably 2 years. There's a rough, realistic number, guessing. The deposition should be real. What kind of things did they decide to take between the drafts? It's been a long time since I read the Second Amendment drafts. I mean, I wrote that paper 14 years ago, so it's been a while. 39 likes and 111 watching. Smash the like button. I could not agree more. You must smash the like button. Who arbitrates a disagreement if two countries disagree on a common treaty interpretation? Each country does. Each country does. It's a matter for each country's court. And then, if the countries come to differing opinions, then it becomes an international conflict. Yeah, so that's, unless the treaty itself specifies a mechanism. So if you have like the World Trade Organization, they have a body to deal with trade disputes, and they deal with it. But otherwise, it would be the status of the home country. I'm told nations commonly reference other nations when dealing with admiralty. I'm sure they do, because admiralty law is the law of the sea, and that's, international law. So it wouldn't surprise me that courts cite each other in admiralty law. That's, that's a common domain. So sure. What does Roberts despise Trump? I don't know that's actually like he despises Trump. He has institutional concerns. I'm deaf, a super nude in here. I'm glad you're here. The dog story sounds like a something piece. K-Dog, do you have any guns? Yes, I do. I'm more of a pistol guy, but yes, I own I own a couple handguns, and then I have some long guns, but they're not actually at my house right now. So how do you ask for a lawyer? I want a lawyer. That's how you ask for a lawyer. I want a lawyer. I want to remain silent. And that's how you do it. You actually ask. I refuse to talk to you until I have a lawyer. Get me a lawyer. Just don't be ambiguous about it. Susan, Canadians don't need lawyers. Love your channel, Secret Crush, too. I'm loving the Secret Crush thing. Did you see what Barnes responded to you? I did not see what Barnes responded to me, and I don't know that I am inclined to, because, I don't necessarily want this to become a drama thing. I previously stated some question in my own mind as to whether or not I did the right thing by making that video public, and I don't know. I still don't know the answer to that question, but I did, and for better or worse. And I don't know that there's anything for me to gain by listening to what Barnes says or attempting to engage it, because I don't know there's anything to be gained by me responding to it in any way. I don't want to start a flame war. I said my piece for better or worse, and presumably he said his piece for better or worse, and probably the best thing to do at this point is to drop it, and maybe at some point in the future, when time has passed, we one or the other or both of us will reconsider our positions and try to do something, and we can laugh about it and be good friends. But I don't particularly want this to become. I'm not. The objective of what I did was not to start a drama fight. And that might have been the result, but it wasn't my intent. And because I now realize after the fact that that's a possible outcome, I don't see that there's anything to be gained by responding to it. So, Robert Barnes is entitled to his opinion. He's entitled to his opinion of me. He's entitled to his opinion of himself, and I don't know there's anything left to be gained by engaging with him, because I think at this point it would just deepen and it would just deepen a divide, and it would just it wouldn't be a positive thing for the YouTube law community. So I think at this time, I'm disinclined to respond to his arguments because, I assume that he disagreed with them, perhaps vehemently. He may think that I have problems as a person. He may have said things about me, and I don't know that there's anything to be gained by trying to respond to that. You're here and you're watching me, so, that's enough. and we'll work from that, you know. So I don't know that I don't know there's anything left to be gained. So I think I'm going to pass. Unicorn, yeah, I would like a lawyer. That's it, yeah. I want to speak to a lawyer. I want a lawyer. Just has to be unambiguous. Maybe, perhaps, perchance. I think the guy might have said something like, "If you think I'm guilty, I should have a lawyer." That's not going to do it either. I want a lawyer. Don't complicate it. I want a lawyer. Get me a lawyer. I want to talk to you. Do I have a lawyer? No habla inglés unless lawyer. You know, that kind of thing. Do you have any advice regarding how to remain silent? Well, first of all, you should actually say it. You actually have to say, "I want to remain silent." And just, you can repeat that phrase. So that'd be fine. Just say, "I want to remain silent. I wish to remain silent." You know, I think you can phrase it in very diplomatic ways. You can say, "Officer, I just wish to remain silent. Officer, I'm sorry, but I can't speak to you right now. Officer, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to have to insist not to speak with you." You know, you can phrase it different ways, you know, and, you know, calling him officer or sir is a good way to go. Yeah. Michael says, "I appreciate you can disagree with a friend and still have a civil conversation, maintain your friendship." Yeah, it was not my intention. It wasn't my intention to harm a friendship, but I realized that that's probably a result of what I did, and I don't want to exasperate that. USA has not signed on to UNCLS, yet we still act on it. Well, I mean, it's our prerogative to act on it if we want to, right? We might not have signed on to it, but as a matter of U.S. law, we can treat it like it's ours, you know? $25 from Sunderkin. Sunderkin. Rather than a specific case, pick one or two of your favorite probable unconstitutional laws. Talk about the relevant precedent, why they're still in the books, and what path and troubles may be seen in overturning them. Well, maybe I'll give that a shot. Thank you. Would you happen to know how the opinion of Roe versus Wade is logically different than an opinion from another country? Well, as to that, I can't possibly speak. As to the U.S. law, the Roe versus Wade is on incredibly shaky logical foundations, to say the least. The chain of logic of it is extremely suspect at best. So first, there's a right of privacy, which isn't really in the Constitution, but okay, let's go with that. There's a right of privacy. You know, you got things that are kind of speaking to privacy, like, right? You got like the Fourth Amendment, Third Amendment, maybe Sixth Amendment due process. You could even throw in like First Amendment freedom of religion. So you got some things that are kind of privacy adjacent. So it's like, okay, we got a right of privacy in there. All right, let's go with that. Then the next thing is this is what really drives me incredibly up the wall. So right to privacy, I'm like, okay. But the thing that drives me up the wall is the next step of the analysis. There are penumbras, which are like shadows. So it's like shadows. So it's not a light, like the freedom of speech would be the light. Freedom of speech is a light. The Second Amendment is a light, right? It's a light. And in this universe, privacy is also a light. Okay, it's a hidden one, but it exists. Let's go with that. And now we're not even talking about the light. Now we're talking about the shadows of the light. And the right of abortion is in the shadows. It's like, that's kind of thin. And, you know, also like the right of privacy, how does it imply a right to medical decisions? Because there's a whole bunch of things the government, you know, Nick and I were having this conversation off stream one time. I think it was off stream, but we're having this conversation. It's like, because in general, what is the principle? Because we were talking about it, I think we might have been talking about it in the specific example of gay conversion therapy. So like, whatever you think about the merits of gay conversion therapy, whatever you think about the merits of it, if the state wants to come in and say doctors cannot perform gay conversion therapy, but wait, even if you're an adult and you want it for yourself, right? But it's like, well, how does that square with Roe? Because if I'm a woman, I have a right to privacy, which includes the right to autonomy, which includes the right to make medical decisions for myself. So the state can't prevent me from having an abortion. They can't prevent me from having a medical procedure that I want. My body, my choice. But at the same exact time, my mind, my choice, apparently not, because even if I want the gay conversion therapy, the state has a right to say, no, you can't have it. It's illegal for this government to give it to you. So it's like, how do those two things square together? And it doesn't seem like it does. And it's like, even if you think gay conversion therapy is ineffective, even if you think it's hogwash, it's like, why doesn't the patient have the right to make that choice for themselves, just like they do for abortion? If abortion is a protected right of part of privacy, as part of the sanctity of the person, as part of autonomy over the person, my body, my choice, then why not my mind, my choice? Why can the state not ban one but ban the other? How does that make sense? And neither Nick or I could figure it out because it didn't really work. And we were also thinking about like other procedures too. Like we were also thinking about other things that the state might want to ban. There's some people who have a mental illness, and I don't remember exactly what it's called, but they for some reason believe that like one of their limbs, they shouldn't have a limb. So there are people who want to have an amputation for cosmetic reasons. There are people like that. And could the government ban that? Because it's, but is that part of medical autonomy or not? What exactly are the rules here? And so, yeah, it's on very, very shaky logical foundations, because we're creating the right to privacy, which itself doesn't exist, and then creating shadows from the right, which doesn't exist. And then even given all that, it doesn't actually seem to logically flow as to how we treat other things when it comes to medical decisions. So like the whole thing is weird. Yeah. Is there a book of judge flip-flops when they decide to use precedent versus do their own thing? Not to the best of my knowledge, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's one that existed. I think it made sense to say your piece, and Barnes has said his piece. It doesn't have to be a back and forth. That's what I think. Yeah, that's what I think. I'm not sure it was a good move on my part, but it's a decision I made for better or worse. And, there's a whole bunch of philosophies on this issue. It's because it's like part of like keeping someone honest when I think I need to. I try to give praise when I think I should, and try to give, criticism when I think I should. I criticize Legal Eagle, and I've praised him. I've criticized Stephen Breyer, and I've praised him. I praised him for a question he made this past stream. So it's like, on one hand, it's like, well, maybe I should criticize Barnes for this specific reason. But on the other hand, maybe it starts drama, maybe it starts a fracture, and maybe it also harms my relationship with Viva, which was definitely not my intent, and maybe that's a problem. But it is what we is, and we'll see what we have to go. The internet loves drama and will keep hounding both of you. There's no particular reason for me to like, I'm not sure it was necessarily wise, or prudent, or advisable to do what I did. And yeah, I don't know. It had been bugging me and eating at me for a little bit, though. It had been eating at me for a little bit. And so it did have the benefit of that, but I'm not sure in retrospect I necessarily made the best decision. So, we'll see how it goes in the future. Hi, Uncivil Law. I go back to painting, but just keep you as something to listen while doing that. That's cool. I just finished ripping the heads off shrimp. What did I miss? Yeah. It's sad that it's come to that, but I've seen it happen before with people owning guns in other states. Okay. You have to say, I want to remain silent. Yes, there was a Supreme Court case specifically on that. You do, in fact, have to say you want to remain silent, despite the paradox. Yes, it's paradoxical. There was a Supreme Court case exactly on this point. And yes, you actually have to say it, even though you're giving up your right to remain silent to say it. But yeah, you do actually have to say it. As lame as it is, yes, you do have to actually say it. Someone was arrested this week. He's an ex-politician who wanted to legalize CP. He's been charged with kidnapping a 12-year-old. Well, kidnapping a 12-year-old is very, very illegal. Advocating for something is legal. So like you can advocate for change of the law. Kidnapping, not so much. So it sounds like he should go to jail and prison. What about those in divorce court? What about it, man? Divorce court is terribly complicated. The Paris Treaty has no effect if Biden signs it. Yeah, that's right. It's not self-executing. It has no enforceable mandates on its own terms. Casey versus Planned Parenthood has superseded Roe versus Wade. That's true. Casey versus Planned Parenthood is the more dominant decision on abortion, but Roe versus Wade is still weird. Third Amendment litigation now, yeah, maybe. Maybe took privacy from the fourth. They took it from a whole bunch of places. It's like, there's a little bit in the third, a little bit in the fourth, a little bit in the first. Yeah, they took it from a whole bunch of places. They cobbled it together. Could abortion be a constitutional right via the Ninth? Well, at least to an originalist, it would have to be within the bounds of the Ninth Amendment when it was passed, and I think that's doubtful that you can get there. Let me open up a different window real fast because I'm having trouble keeping with the chat, and someone came up with a browser extension for that. So let me see if I can load that extension because I'm having trouble keeping up with the chat. See if this actually loads for me. Will it load for me? No, apparently not. Oh well. Doesn't a fetus have due process? Well, that would be the debate, if a fetus has due process or not. So that's part of the whole debate. Isn't it true that Casey is controlling? Yes, it is. Phantom limb illness. Yeah. Well, phantom limb illness is different, I think. Isn't phantom limb illness where you think you have a limb that you don't have? So, like, if you've already had an amputation from war, and so you think that you have a limb that you don't have, that's phantom limb. I think you might be getting this backwards. So I think phantom limb, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think phantom limb illness is where you've had an amputation, usually because of a war, and you still think you have one even though you don't. We're talking about people who actually have the limb and don't think they should have it. They think that it's a defect to have the limb they have. So I'm not sure that's phantom limb illness. Might be something else. Gay conversion therapy is not for adults looking to convert. It's for parents to send their children to. Well, yes, but in this hypothetical, to the best of my knowledge, and again, someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but to the best of my knowledge, states that have banned it even for adults. I think California did, even for adults. So if you were an adult and did want gay therapy for yourself, could the government ban it? Would be the question. So, like, yeah, maybe it's something you send your kid to, but what if you want to go to it yourself? It's like, I don't want to be gay anymore. I want to go to gay conversion therapy. Is that something you should have the right to do as an adult? And to the best of my knowledge, that's not legal in California, although I could be mistaken. Steven says, please tell me you're not expecting consistency. I always hope for it. I try to always look for things to be logically consistent. Sin 6 Grim Reaper, thank you for responding to my last question. No problem. It'd be interesting if you and Viva had a stream where he would try to argue something versus U.S. rights. I don't know enough about Canadian law to be able to argue that. One of my thoughts on abortion in Canada, I have no clue. Any thoughts on the case before Supreme Court Cedar Point Nursery versus Hasid? What is that one? Is that that sounds so familiar? Cedar Point his Nursery versus Hasid. What is that one? Uncompensated appropriation of easement that's limited in time affects a per se taking. Well, that's really niche. An uncompensated appropriation of an easement that's limited in time affects a per se taking under the Fifth Amendment. That's pretty freaking niche, man. No particular thoughts on that one. Is Virginia the only state that you practice law? It's the only state to which I have a license, but I also have a patent law license, which allows me to practice patent law everywhere. So I practice patent law because I have a federal license for that. There was a case out of Florida that dealt with that issue, so they can't stop me. Ha 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 ha. On one honesty points, well, I got that going on. Yeah, at a certain point, things just have to get aired out eventually, both at you and Barnes, until you reconcile privately. Yeah, that's probably where it's headed. I think, at some point in the future, I don't have really any animosity to him. I just think that he has a presentation style. And I'm not sure that he knows he's doing it. And it's probably not the best way for me to advise him that he was doing it. But I don't think that he knows he's doing it. And I probably didn't do it in a way that would help with his self-awareness, assuming he doesn't have it. But yeah, I don't have any animosity to him. And I don't really have any animosity to him. And I was just bothered by it. And, let bygones be bygones, I think. So any advice for someone taking ethics court for continuing education requirement for armed guard? Golden Rule seems about to cover it. Yeah, that would be good. Have I considered teaching law? That's what I'm doing right now, man. Right? That's what YouTube allows me to do. I've got 123 people in class as we speak, man. Not too bad. Yeah. Yeah, body integrity dysphoria. Yeah, body integrity dysphoria. That's right. Ginger Cowgirl, welcome to Uncivil Law University, a better university than Trump University. Yeah, and I don't charge you as much either. Happy Christmas. Well, thank you, Railway Hacker. I would say, as an adult, if I decide to have conversion therapy, that's between me and my doctor. I mean, that would be the logical thing. But I believe California has banned it. So, taking his litigation be hot, I guess. Yeah, I guess. Isn't there a consent argument for gay conversion that looks like you can consent for sex at 15 and 16, consent for abortion at 15 and 16? How about we make 15 and 16 all adults, make them eligible for a draft? I like that. What is the best education path to become a lawyer in the United States? Well, you're going to need an undergrad degree in something. I would strongly recommend that you do not get a degree in pre-law. I don't think it would help, and I think it's not beneficial. Pretty much any degree will be fine. If you want to practice patent law specifically, you're going to need some kind of engineering degree or what's called hard science degree. So chemistry, physics, engineering, something like that. Otherwise, I would recommend, and this is a bit of a regret of mine because I took political science as a second degree, and in retrospect, I wish I had taken philosophy as a second degree. So I think you should take some formal philosophy courses in school. You don't necessarily have to get a degree in philosophy, but I think you should definitely take some philosophy electives. You could consider a degree in English because a lot of what lawyers do is reading and writing, to be quite honest. So a degree in English would be a good idea, or in communications, specifically targeted written communication. Yeah, but you just any degree will be fine, because lawyers come from all different paths. Music degree. I've known some really good lawyers with some music degrees because they get this kind of like, they're really interesting, the lawyers with the music degrees. They have an interesting style to them, because of the way they think. It's different. It's kind of interesting watching it. But yeah, just any degree in any, and then you apply to law school. It's, try to do as well as you can. Try to take studying seriously. But I'd recommend, for degrees, I'd recommend it specifically that you do not get a pre-law degree. I think it's a waste of time. I'd recommend you take some philosophy courses. I'd recommend that you take more English courses than you need to. You might want to consider majoring in English. You might want to consider majoring in some sort, or at least minoring in some sort of communication, specifically written communication, Maybe journalism. That might be helpful. Yeah, that's what I'd say. What's that picture on the wall? That would be the flag of Texas. Why'd you change careers? You're a programmer, right? Yeah, I mean, I went straight out of undergrad into law school, but I did a lot of programming as internships, and I always wanted to go to law school. I just had to get a degree first. Yeah, so. State bar exams are pointless in the 21st examinary. One bar exam and 1 year mandatory practice. That might be good. Will there be a midterm? No. And law schools don't do midterms typically. And the picture is the flag of Texas. Can I be nonprofit like PragerU? Not the worst idea, I think. Yeah. So on the patent bar, usefulness to take now. I was previously approved to sit for it, but never took it. Then moved active PA license to inactive status due to disability 20 years ago. I mean, if you want to do it, do it. But it's lost its luster for me. And not to say that it won't lose its luster for you, but it's I've been doing it for 13 years. I'm ready to move on to something else. Yeah, writing is a good one. Yeah, learning how to writing. Yeah, some sort of whatever requires a lot of writing. Where in Texas am I? I'm in Austin. You'll be in San Antonio for Christmas. That's awesome. We'll be relatively close together. Fight over an Oxford comma in Maine. I am pro Oxford comma. Oxford comma for days, man. Oxford comma for days. A history course. History. It would be helpful to take American history a little bit. So if you're going to take some history courses, American history might be helpful. But yeah, writing is really where you want to go down there. Music isn't so much about the copyright law, or it's I don't know, it's because it's kind of related to mathematics, at least in people's minds, because there's a mathematical relationship in music. So people who have music degrees, who become lawyers, have a different style. It's interesting. So yeah, music is an interesting one. Another chat room going downhill. I don't hope so. Yeah, you should take a logic course. You should take formal logic in school. I took formal logic as part of my computer science degree. That helped a lot. So you should definitely take formal logic. That would help. Psychology, maybe. If it requires a generic degree, do you think it should be required? Not really, no. Courtney says, "Do it for you, babe." Yeah, exactly. Erica, can do it, but not for your father. I'm sure he's already proud. Do it for you. I agree. Does a pro se litigant have a chance in district court in Texas? Yeah, sure. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but pro ses do win. No, I'm just moving on from patent law. I'm a little bit tired of doing patent law, which is my primary field. It's one of the reasons I started the YouTube channel, and one of the reasons I cover like basically everything but patent law on my channel. There is a reason I don't talk about patent law on my channel. I'm finding it a little bit boring at this point. I'm ready to move on. I am an expert in the field, and I don't like talking about it. Is patent law practice individual or largely working for large firms for corporate? It's a little bit of both, and there's a lot of in-house too. So like pretty much every company worth a damn has patent lawyers in-house for if no other reason than talking to the lawyers who are outside of them. So there's people who work inside Microsoft, for example, just to pick a random company. People that work for inside Microsoft, but Microsoft has a shit ton of outside counsel. So sometimes they're there just to facilitate the communication. Sometimes they're there to get the initial draft from the engineers. There's people who do the litigation side rather than the prosecution side. So there's people who do in-house. There's people who work for the law firms. There's a couple people who do it more solo. But patent law itself, unless you're on litigation side, can be very um, individual. So that's one of the benefits, is that it can be very much just you. Even if you work in larger teams, it tends to be more your case on an individual level. So yeah. Been in criminal law for 15 years, moving to divorce law. Yeah, see, I'd move into criminal law. It's like, I'd take a job as a U.S. attorney. I think it'd be cool. They do have a cybercrime division. That might be fun. But yeah, I'm ready to like try something else. Like, yeah, let's do some criminal law. Let's put some bad guys away. That might be fun. Yeah, I'm gonna have to ban patent law cases from my channel. It's like, yeah, I don't want to cover patent law cases. Every time I drove through Austin at dusk, many bats can be seen flying off the bridge. Yeah, Austin's very famous for the bats from the bridge. I think it's Congress Bridge is the name of that bridge. But yeah, we're very, very famous for the bats. It's one of our shticks. If I had to choose a career other than law, what would it be? Um, Psychologist. I mean, it would require a lot, or a psychiatrist. Yeah, it would require a lot different training, but I think that might be fun. Um, that's the best answer I've got. What do I think of the universal law bar? I think it's great. What kind of law would I like to start practicing? I'm happy that I'm having this YouTube channel, to be quite honest. I'm happy that it's given me the opportunity to teach. I like teaching. I like the fact that it gives me the chance to talk about so many different kinds of law. But yeah, criminal law is kind of appealing. I could see myself like becoming a district attorney. I'd have to take one hell of a pay cut to become a district attorney, but I'm still tempted. Um, but like becoming an appellate judge would be fun. I could always run for judge now that I live in Texas. That might be interesting. You know, how long do lawyers generally stay in the same types of law? How common is this switch? It's pretty common to switch, I'd say. I say a lot of lawyers get burned out in one field or another. Parenting advice, please. Whew, I don't know if I can help you there. In my old age, I realized too late that I've enjoyed being a lawyer. I see that my daughter may be a lot like me. How can I encourage this career path? Well, I'd say first and foremost, your daughter has to make her own decisions for better or worse. Um, I think you can talk about your own experiences and own regrets, but I would only talk about them in your own context. I wouldn't, at least for me, wouldn't talk about it as putting pressure on her, because she has to make her own decision. So if you want to say, I made some choices in my own life and made some regrets, and here's some choices I wish I had made, and here's why I made the bad choices, and here's why I made these different choices, I think that would be fine. But I think your daughter fundamentally has to make her own decisions. Um, I'd encourage a wide range of learning, and you got to follow your own path, man. Is there anything you changed about your career decisions so far? Um, yeah, if I think I should have tried harder to become a clerk and as a federal for a federal judge. Will I look at patent whatever? No, I will not. What do I enjoy about patent law? I don't really enjoy it as much anymore. Feel like you'd be decent at CBT? Yeah, that'd be fun. Another place famous for bats, very funny. How much do patent trademark attorneys generally make? I mean, it's all over the board, but you're talking, it can be a very healthy salary. I don't like to talk about exact numbers. If you're a U.S. attorney, let's just say that I take a very substantial pay cut to be a public attorney, and I'm still thinking about it. Most district attorneys probably make 50,000, if that. Last time I checked. So yeah, if you're a U.S. attorney, would would this channel be ethics background investigation? Yeah, I mean, I'd have to disclose it, but there's no reason that it should be a problem. I mean, I'd disclose it. I'd be like, yeah, I did that, and be like, what of it? It's just me sharing my opinion, so it shouldn't. I can't imagine it be a problem. Do I think YouTube might affect your future job prospects? I hope, if anything, it will give me an opportunity I couldn't generate for myself. There's always the possibility someone will see it and give me an opportunity I couldn't have generated. So they'll see it and be like, ah, you should do this instead, and maybe come work for me. So that'd be good. Are judges allowed to have social media or YouTube channels? Well, I'd have to look at the ethics on being a judge a little bit more. I mean, judges can't talk about any case that they have. So, I mean, at a bare minimum, if I were a judge, I wouldn't be able to talk about any case like that's in front of my court. And probably, like, I don't know, I'd have to actually look at the judicial canons of ethics. It'd probably be easier just to stay completely out of any case of Texas. You know, it's like there's 49 other states, so that's fine. But I'd have to look at the judicial canons of ethics a little bit more carefully. But yeah, as long as I didn't discuss any of my own cases, and not just that, any of the ones that are in my court, and probably just to be safe for the entire damn state of Texas, I think I'd be fine. But I'd have to double check the ethics there. Cybercrime cases might be interesting. Yeah. What do you wish you would have been if? Why do you wish you would have been a federal judge clerk? Because I think it opens a lot of opportunities, and I think it would have been a really, really interesting experience. So technically speaking, I could still be a federal clerk. I mean, there's nothing stopping me. It would just be a little weird to try to apply to be a federal judge's clerk. But maybe I should start sending resumes to federal judges in town. That'll be good. Let me start sending some resumes to some federal judges and be like, hey, do you need a clerk? I'm available. I could do it. There's nothing that would prevent it. What do I think about automated attorneys, AI bots? I think it's going to be a while before they can really do what's necessary, but they're heading in that direction. No current judges have YouTube channels? That might be quite possible. Don Wilt is famous for his Twitter before becoming a judge. That's famous. Yeah, that's cool. Why don't we talk about the legality of governor mandates? We talk about them all the time. We cover them all the time on this channel. We haven't covered them in a little while because we've been talking about the election for a little bit. But we've done probably a good half dozen, if not more, COVID-related lockdown cases on this channel, including from Stickman. And why not clerk now? That's actually a pretty good question. Does he even read the chat or anyone else in here? I'm going to go with yes. I actually read the chat. If you're going to clerk, do it for Court of Appeals. Thanks for live stream information, engaging and entertaining. Yeah, no problem. I like to talk to you guys. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's very entertaining. Yeah, but we have done cases all over the place. We've done Colorado, we did Michigan, we did Pennsylvania. We've done a couple COVID-related lockdowns. I think we did Wisconsin. Yeah. Could you be a TV judge where you try to dismiss everything for standing? I don't know about that, man. Yeah, I don't know about that. The feds need qualified lawyers. My computer forensic courses were very interesting. If I go to law enforcement, it'll be my specialty. Yeah, that's very, very cool. Will technology kill paralegals? Not. I mean, it's hard to say in the future, but like, I think we need a lot of steps. I don't think we're particularly close right now to being able to replace lawyers or paralegals, because trying to figure out what the right arguments are, because the law is a very complex domain, and it would be hard for an AI bot, I think, to look at it and even know how to ask the right questions. But I haven't seen anything that's like in the right domain. I do occasionally. Oh, I am not doing divorce court if I can avoid it. I really don't want to do family law. I really don't want to be a family law judge. I feel like there's no joy to be had there. I feel like no matter what I do, everyone's going to hate me, and I feel like it's just a bad deal. I do skip over some messages from time to time, yeah. It looks like live chat is on as far as I can tell. I think we've reached the bottom of the chat. I don't really have anything more right now. It's already 12:19, whatever. Yeah, I'm not looking up any patents. I'm sorry. I'm just not doing that. Judge Dawson from Cleveland is a streaming judge. That's cool. Yeah, I think you could. I mean, I have to check up the ethics. His Twitter's been silent since he went to the court. That's interesting. I wonder, yeah, what the ethics are on that one. But yeah, interesting. Do I have any interest in space law? Maybe. What was my LSAT score? Man, that's been a long time. I think it was like low 160s. It's like 161, something like that. 163. It's been a long time since I took the LSAT. Um, would you do family law if you just heralded adoptions? I don't wanna. It's the middle of your day? Really, Ginger Cowgirl? I was under the impression that you lived in Texas. I thought maybe you lived in Dallas. Why is it the middle of your day at 12 p.m.? Or do you live on the other side of the world? I was under the impression that you lived in Dallas, but maybe I missed it on that one. A friend of mine is a family lawyer. He loves it. I'm glad it works for him. I don't want a piece of that. Do I mess with civil rights law? I mean, not in my job, but I wouldn't mind going to that. Yeah. Yeah, please hit the like button. I'm running out of things for the chat. Oh, you're Canadian. She lives in Canada. That's cool. Fair enough. Just nocturnal. That's cool. Craig says he learns a lot from my channel. I'm glad you do. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, there must be some people like family law. Just I don't want a piece of people do it. Yeah, I think I'm going to sign off because we've reached the end of the chat. If you enjoyed the stream, if you'd be so kind as to give it a like, I'd appreciate it. What do I think the worst area of law to work in? I mean, for me, family law, I think, is the worst. That's the one I really don't want a piece of. It just feels like it's going to be empty and completely depressing. Have you been enjoying how the CDPR has been handling cyberpunk release? Will you do anything in the future about star counts or star courts? You mean like star chambers? I don't really think we have those. Didn't Sullivan immediately lose jurisdiction? Why didn't he have to dismiss? He did. He rendered his moot. He's an idiot. Yeah, please give it a like. Please subscribe. Please join if you haven't already. I'm going to be up tomorrow morning. We'll be streaming something. I'm not sure exactly when, but we'll see. And just as a quick reminder for those of you who have access to my Discord, we are looking for serious suggestions for the background for the green screen to help increase the channel and help increase subscriber growth. So if you have any thoughts out there, please remember to drop by the Discord and give a suggestion for backgrounds. It would be really, really appreciated. I'm going to head out for now. All right. Peace. Guy.